I'm Idit Ben Or. Right now I'm a postdoctoral fellow at the Martin Buber Society of Fellows in Jerusalem. And I was I'm an alumni of the Azrieli doctoral program from 2017, which I think was the second cohort ever of Humanities, right? Yeah. So it was very new and kind of different, I think, as Rochelle said. We felt we were bringing something different.
You were? You still are.
So just to say what we're going to do here today, the point is to have kind of an open discussion and share knowledge from what we've experienced so far. I know Yuval. I don't know the two other people who are here, but you'll introduce yourselves shortly. Just to really openly ask any question you feel, to learn from the experiences of people who are relatively early in the postdoc journey, but there's people here who have much more experience. And we have two fellows. I forget the name of the fellowship. It's career. No,
early career.
Early career.
Okay.
Early career fellows. Okay, who are here with us today. So Professor Giddon Ticotsky from the Hebrew Literature Department at Hebrew University, and Dr. Eshbal Ratzon from, let's see if I get this right, the Cohen Institute for the History and Philosophy of Science and Ideas, and the Jewish Philosophy and Talmud Department at Tel Aviv University. Did I get that right? Yes. Okay. So before we begin, if you guys could just, well, before we get to Giddon and Eshbal, who will present a little more in depth their postdoc journeys, I called it, we'd just like to hear who everybody in the room is. Your name, where you're from, maybe a sentence or two about your research, so we can get to know you. So let's start with Yoni.
Hi, everybody. My name is Yoni Livne. I study Hebrew literature at Ben Gurion University. And my research is about Leah Goldberg and Chaim Nachman Bialik and Sami Bertugo. He is an active Israeli author. And I write about depth and movement as a plastic and metaphorical phenomenon while reading.
Great.
And you're an accomplished musician, for anyone who missed a wonderful performance at our gala when we were actually able to get together.
This is what we're
like this, but instead I'll do this.
Nice. This is why Rochelle is here, so she can embarrass us like a good family member. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Okay.
It's like the Jewish mother. Have you met my son?
Exactly.
I am my own Jewish mother. Yeah. That's my nightmare.
Yeah, give me her phone number. We'll talk.
Breen, am I pronouncing your name correctly?
Yeah, my name is Breen Ben Shmuel. I'm at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem. I'm a third-year doctoral student in sociology, and I study transboundary environmental cooperation during conflict. So I'm outside of the humanities, but I joined you all today to hear from your experience.
And Yuval?
I'm sorry?
Yuval. Yeah.
Okay, hi everyone, it's great to see all of you actually. So my name is Yuval and I am an alumnus of the Azrieli 2017 cohort. And I just got my PhD on last Thursday, so after a very long waiting. So it's an exciting times too. Yeah, and I'm a postdoctoral fellow at the Center for the Study of Conversion in Ben Gurion University, in the process of applications for next year, so we'll see what comes up. And I work on early modern history and specifically on the Jesuits, the Jesuit mission in China.
Rochelle, do you want to introduce yourself? But Aviad, maybe I mean, everybody knows Rochelle, so we'll skip that, but and everybody knows Aviad, but you also have postdoctoral experience, I understand. So maybe just say a word about that and then we'll continue.
Yes.
So I finished my doctorate in 2006 at Bar-Ilan University in Talmudic philology. And actually my wife and I finished the same, we were together in the same ceremony. She is a political scientist. And we were both looking for a place where we could both be. So that was a bit tough finding a place, and we already had 4 children at the time. But we finally found the Schusterman Center at University of Texas in Austin. They have and my wife was really the main postdoc. She was actually teaching a lot and also studying a lot. And I had a lot of free time, and I was just affiliated with the place. I could really do whatever I wanted to do, which is a lot of fun. And we only spent a year in the States, and then we got back. So that's pretty much my experience. You have other questions? I believe Ambreen was at UT, but maybe not in Austin, right?
Rice.
Oh,
My
I
passion.
remember Texas. We have a big Texan flag here in the house.
Well, as everyone should. Okay, so now what we're going to do is just I asked Eshbal and Giddon and myself, I asked myself as well, to just present in a few minutes each. I think I'm hearing an echo, so if you could just turn off your I'm not sure if it's that or not, but let's see. To present their postdoc journey, meaning where they were, why they ended up there, if it was for reasons that are, intellectual or practical, or both. Some thoughts maybe about each place that they were at, and one piece of advice they would have liked to know when they started their postdoc journey. If they could go back and speak to Giddon and Eshbal of the end of the PhD, what would they say to themselves? So that you can end with that thought. So I think we'll start with Eshbal, and we'll take it from there. When we're finished, we'll just open it up to questions and open discussion.
Hi. Thank you, Idit, for introducing me so nicely. And well, my postdoc experience was very, very long. I finished my PhD at 2012 at Tel Aviv University. Then I did 1 year at Ben Gurion University with Pratt Fellowship. I don't know if you've heard of it. It was supposed to be for 2 years, but at the same time, I got the Fulbright Fellowship to go to Princeton. So, but I was also pregnant with 3 twins. So I postponed a little bit the Fulbright so I could go after delivering them. So I got to have nearly a year at Ben Gurion and then a year at Princeton, which was great and difficult. Going there with 4 kids like you have had, but 2 of them were 2 months old. And it was really difficult for all of the family. My husband is a computer programmer, and he had a dream. He worked very hard when the 2 older girls were born. So he had a dream to have paternity leave. So that was his chance, but he didn't imagine how hard it would be. He wanted to go back to work after a while, but there were so many bureaucratic problems, and he only got his work permit a month before we had to go back to Israel. So we couldn't stay there for over a year because it was just too difficult with the family constellation. And then I got back to the Cohen Institute. I got there a postdoc. My PhD studies were in Jewish studies, and then I got a postdoc in the history of science, which was great for me because it opened a new discipline. that I wasn't familiar with, although I wrote on a similar topic, but I wasn't from there. This year, when I came back from the US, it was like a good year for applications, because when you get back from abroad and from a prestigious university, many doors are opened. But after the 2 years at the Cohen Institute, I wasn't that. I was already in Israel, so it was more difficult to find new positions. But fortunately, I did get another postdoc. At that point, I was really despaired, and I told myself this was the last one. I didn't even apply to 1 or 2 years fellowships, because I felt like it was a waste of time. You only get there and start applying immediately. So but I found one for 3 years with an option to extend it for another 2 years. So I took it with Idit Ben Or, who you heard. And actually it was a good choice, because I've learned so much there. I acquired new set of tools of digital humanities, and it was a very good and important experience for me. I actually learned a lot from each one of the fellowships, although it was stressful and difficult emotionally to not know what will be with me. I learned a lot in each position, and I didn't, although I had a chance to extend it for another 2 years, I already got a position at Azrieli University at that time. So I left after 3 years, and then after another 2 years, I got the position at Tel Aviv University, which is where I am now. And if I were able to talk to my past self, I think I would let myself know how difficult this process is and how much it requires from the entire family. Not only in terms of moving from country to country, which is also difficult, but the entire time you're stressed. It's stressful. You're nervous. You can't give everything you would have given to your family because of the stressful situation. So first of all, I would have told myself that I should consider how much I would like to put into this process. And secondly, I think I would have told myself to have a plan B. Although I did get a position eventually, and I'm grateful for that, but it's kind of a miracle, and no one promises that to you. So you should do the entire process only if you would have done it, even if you knew that you wouldn't get a position at the end of it. And you should also prepare yourself for the option that you wouldn't. So think about what other options you have to make a living. Maybe learn another skill. Try to use the time to prepare yourself with other skills, because no one promises anything.
Thank you for openly sharing your experiences. Giddon.
Thank you, and Eshbal, it was so inspiring. I'll try to be close to your talk. I made a very short slide just to show the long, as Eshbal, I too had quite a long journey until the tenure track position. So here it is. And please excuse this, just 1 moment. Now you can see?
Yeah.
So, and you can see that I still when preparing this slide, I still thought in Hebrew, and that's why it's right to left instead of left to right. So excuse me, Brian. I graduated from Tel Aviv University, and at the same year had a postdoctoral fellowship at the Rosenberg Center in the Hebrew University. It's fellowship for German Jewish studies, and it was beautiful, really wonderful place to exercise my German and to dwell into a project that, should I haven't received this fellowship, I guess I wouldn't have done this kind of research. Then I had a chance to go to Stanford with fellowship that I guess is not available today for postdocs. It's called the Israel Institute. They actually made my first year there, and then after making my own contacts at Stanford, I succeeded in simply being there for another 1 year, because after such a relocation, specifically to the States, I guess that Eshbal would say the same. It's very tough to leave only 1 year after you get there. It takes so much time to understand where you are, then you have to stay another year. So I had the chance to be that extra year at Stanford, and then by chance, I can't explain it otherwise, I got a fellowship at CAT Center. It's one of the, maybe the biggest place for Jewish studies in the States. And again, it took me to another project that I could not conceive without the group that was there. I came back to Israel with nothing ahead. After my spouse and I decided that that's enough and we want to get back home. And then again, by chance, I got the Mundell Scholion Fellowship. And just one word about it. They used to have it, they called it marathon of talks at Mundell, and Idit knows it well. That's the place where we met. And I didn't win the marathon, but it turns out that I left quite good impression. And the year later, they simply called me and they told, there is one scholarship available, will you take it? And I took it. And it was simply pure chance, pure luck. I'm telling this story to tell that even if you don't win in the first place a specific fellowship or scholarship you are applying to, maybe after being there, delivering a talk, knowing people, you can't know where it would lead you further on. So this was my track. And again, I'll conclude as Eshbal did with a tip I could, or advice I could give retrospectively to myself. I would say that be a leaf in the water, in the sense that you do not have that much control on your life when you are a postdoc. You are simply in this very harsh water. Sometimes it takes you to places you haven't imagined in the very good sense. For me, that was the fellowship at CAT Center in Philadelphia. I didn't plan, it simply was the only door that was opened that same year for me. It takes you to very tough places, but if you understand that you have to, like in the Zen thinking, let the things, let it go, let it snow. then things may be less complicated. You have to simply let the things roll. That's for now.
Okay, thank you again for sharing openly. I'll share also, again, I have a lot less experience. We'll see what this session would look like, 5 or 6 years down the road. I will say that I'm working now on a small project on the history of lottery tickets, and lottery tickets always write on them like that it's by chance and luck. So I kind of feel like lottery tickets and postdocs in humanities have a lot in common. So maybe it's not by chance that I'm working on that right now. Okay, so I started thinking about a postdoc about a year before what I thought would be the end of my PhD, and was not a year before I ended. I think it was about a year and a half, a year and 10 months before it actually ended. But that was my first round. And I was very confused about where I wanted to go, what would be good. I was at that point, I had just gotten engaged. Also, that kind of putting that into the mix of what would be good for Yoav as well. And I applied to all kinds of things, which most of them I did not accept. I was not accepted to, and ended up getting 2 interviews, which is one more than what you need. You only need 1. But I ended up interviewing for the Buber Society of Fellows and making it to the waiting list that first year, which I thought was an impossible thing to happen. I applied to the Buber Fellowship because it was a relatively easy application. Everybody told me that there's no chance that could happen. And I ended up making it to an interview. When they told me that I was going to be interviewed, I was in my honeymoon in New Zealand. It was 10 days later, the interview. So I had no time to prepare. I did no mock interviews. I did nothing of the things you're supposed to do to prepare for something on that level. 2 days before the interview, I was on a hiking trail and there was a flash flood and we were rescued by helicopters and my computer was stuck in the parking lot. And then we didn't know what to do and how I was going to, I had no clothes, no clean clothes. We ended up finding like a motel and somebody who gave us a computer, and it was a mess. But that was my first experience. And then I was not accepted. And I ended up being accepted to a postdoc at Tel Aviv University in the Safa Center for Ethics and Law. They had a program on research of markets, and the truth is I don't think it was very competitive because they really needed people in the humanities. They had lots of people from law. They had lots of people from, actually economics weren't that interested, people from law, people from social sciences. They couldn't find people who did economics in the humanities. So I think that was like relatively a good way to go. And it ended up being a great program. And it gave me the funding for the final part of my PhD. So while I was finishing up and making corrections that the judges asked me to make. And within that year, my postdoc was approved. I interviewed for Buber and I was accepted. So it was relatively short. And again, like Eshbal and Giddon said, I was very, very lucky to receive the Buber Fellowship so quickly. And it does feel like it's by chance. So now I have this quiet that these long programs afford, and it's very valuable, and it's probably the most amount of certainty that you can get. Where I feel like I need to be very mindful is that I don't have international experience and connections. And when I come to apply for a job, that's going to be something that I need to think about and figure out how I create that without being abroad. Now, I will say that the reason that happened also was because, I forgot to say it, that after I finished my PhD and I needed to apply when I was at Tel Aviv, in the postdoc, I made a conscious decision. I was pregnant, that I'm not going to give birth during COVID in a foreign country. And I'm not going to do a postdoctoral fellow in a period of time where I don't know if I'll go abroad and the university won't be opened. And it's not a price that I'm willing to pay. And if you talk about chance, that felt super risky. I didn't know what that meant. I had many plan Bs. I was, learning to program. I was working on rebuilding old work connections. I knew that it was very risky, and it worked out. I know it could have also not worked out. The advice that I would have given myself not that long ago. Well, I wanted to share one piece of advice that I actually got that was very helpful, and another thing that I would have liked to say to myself. So somebody at Scholion, where I was a fellow during my doctorate, said to me, try to decide what are the options that you consider acceptable. You don't have to apply for everything. There's a price, maybe, if you don't apply for everything. You might not get that one chance, that one door that opens. You're closing doors. But it is okay to like regain your agency and say there are options that are not acceptable as far as I'm concerned. And that piece of advice really helped me in that moment when I decided that I was not going to give birth during COVID abroad. It helped me, it gave me like the power to make that decision. And the thing I would have told myself was to not mourn too much the things that don't happen, or the failures. Each time you apply, you imagine yourself in that place, especially the ones you really want. And I think it might be good to like set, kind of like in Judaism, there's the Shiva, and it's a set time that you say, you can't not mourn, right? It sucks. You were rejected. But to say, okay, I give this whatever, 72 hours, I will dwell in it. And then I am picking up and moving on, because it's just not worth the price. So that's something that I think I still need to tell myself now, actually. I think I'm still in that journey, so I have to remind myself that all the time. So those are my words. And now I think we can just, any questions you have, thoughts you have, feel free.
I have a question. I'll jump in. It was really interesting. Thank you so much for sharing. And it's really helpful also to hear your own family stories of, spouses and children and pregnancy and the family negotiation considerations that go into it. I'd love to hear you also talk about what you think made you competitive, other than these miracles and these lucky chances, which, there is serendipity to things as well. But was it, do you think that through your interviews, you found these important, whether it was teaching experience, whether it was publishing? It might be, I'm sure it's different a little bit in the humanities and the social sciences, but if you can just talk about what you think, gave you maybe a little bit of an edge in the various postdoctoral fellowships that you all had. I'd appreciate that.
I think that the most important thing for me was the recommendations. So it's really important to choose your referees. Like, you would want them to be senior as possible. Don't just pick up someone. So really think about it. You want them to be relevant. So you want them to be senior. You want them to be relevant. You want them to be from various countries. You don't want only from one country. I think that's very important, and I think people take recommendation letters very seriously. I can tell you that I won the Fulbright fellowship with no publication at all, and with no, and I only submitted my dissertation. I didn't even get the reviews from the readers. So I think that the recommendations were important. A good topic, obviously, is important. You don't want to delve into very minor details. You want to show that you know how to handle the details, but that you can raise your head and look on the wider perspective. So a good topic, and obviously after a while you would be expected to publish, so of course publications. Something that happened to me during my Fulbright interview, that I don't know if it helped, but maybe My father was supposed to pick up my girls from kindergarten, and he just didn't arrive. They called me while I was waiting for the interview, telling me I knew that he picked up one of the girls, and then I got a phone call that he never arrived to pick up the other girl. I was very nervous. I didn't know what to do, and he didn't answer the phone. And it was my turn to get into the committee. And I just couldn't do the interview because I thought something happened on the way. So I told them, I'm sorry, but I can't do the interview. My father never arrived to the other kindergarten. And someone was waiting after me. He offered to switch, and we switched. And then apparently my father was just late, and he didn't answer the phone because he was afraid I'm gonna yell at him. So, so everything was fine. And I don't know if it had any effect on my chances, but I felt like they had a chance to see that I'm a person, that I'm not only a scholar, but just, I just had a chance to be a little different than other people who were interviewed. I'm sure everyone were very good. I'm sure everyone had good ideas and good recommendations and maybe more publications than I had. But I think that, I'm not sure, but I think that sometimes showing the committee that you're a person, that you have something that is unique, that is different than all the other faces that they saw, might help.
If I may follow up, being a subject, yes, being one who stands on his own, yes, it's really important. And I guess that it's more important when applying for postdocs, and even for positions. Take the publications as first priority, if I may advise, and teaching is really marginal. There's kind of saying that you should have your experience in teaching, and there are some postdocs who really demand a lot of teaching, as Aviad told. So it's really, really minor. If a department wants you, it really never mind. If you taught or if you did not, they will take you, but they will get to know you specifically, at least in my field, by your publications. And I feel that the fact that during those quite difficult times, I worked, I published, that's actually what led me or gave me this position. So to your question, Edith, publication is the first priority.
So in my case, I really don't know, but I feel that there's a grace period when you're just finished your postdoc, that if they're interested, I guess, then publications don't play a role, because in history, we don't usually have publications during our so obviously in 2 years, they would have expected me to have publications. I did bring references from abroad because I spent a year in my PhD in the University of Wisconsin. So I made sure to bring a reference from there. And I think it was my project. I don't know, because again, I felt very lucky, but my project was really something that was timely. So I work on the history of money, and I offered a project on the history of corporate money, and I tied it into Facebook wanting to issue currency. And even though I felt that was cheap, the committees really liked it. And they talked to me about it, and it annoyed them a little bit, but it was interesting to them. I'm sure the references played a role as well. And there's, always the politics of academia. You can't, negate that. But I saw in the interviews also at Tel Aviv that kind of really got their attention. So that's my only thought on that. more questions. Yeah.
Yeah, just another point. I think that there are two kinds, or maybe three kinds of postdoc fellowships. One is the one that you teach, and another is the one that you have your own project and you get funding to do your own project. But some fellowships are projects that are fellowships that you are integrated into someone else's project. And for these kind of fellowships, I think it's really important to get to know people, like go to conferences, talk to people, show yourself, make appointments. When you go to a conference, don't only sit there. Try to write an email to someone, ask him, invite him or her for lunch, to discuss, not to be friends, just to discuss scholarship. So people will get to know you and appreciate you, because I think when I choose postdocs for my projects, I prefer people I know. I prefer people that I already got to know from other occasions. If you have people who care about you in the academia, which is very important, again, like your supervisor or other people, ask them to make the connections, to help to introduce you to people that matter to your future. It's really, really important to, I think much of it is personal. Even though we would like to think that we're the best and we had the best project and we had the best publications, a lot of it is personal.
Maybe this is the difference between the postdoc and the doctoral studies, in the sense that in the doctoral studies, you are under your advisor. In German, we say Doktorvater or Dr. Mutter. Yes, it's the father or your father or your mother. And in the postdoc, as Eshbal said, you have to create a network with as many scholars you may engage to your work, so that they would have kind of a sense of what you are doing. And again, relating to what Idit said earlier, if you don't get the fellowship, the specific position you wished, don't take it personally. There are so many political aspects or considerations that you can't even imagine. I just give you a very short example. When applying to postdocs in the US, you have to fill in, among other fields, also the field of ethnicity. And I guess that within the closed room, they say, okay, we have one Asian, one. So maybe you had a wonderful project, but some minority should have, or whatever. So don't take it personally. A no or a rejection is not personal.
So I want to give a chance to maybe Yuval and Yoni to ask a question, because we have 9 more minutes. Somehow the time flew. So do you have, Yuval, go ahead.
Yeah, I can. There's something that I would like to consult with you about. I'm in the process of applications. I've been in this process also last year, and sometimes I think about the project that I'm actually proposing in all of these applications, and I wonder if this is the right path to go. And I mean, at least in my case, I'm proposing some kind of a long-term project that really interests me, and I see it as a kind of a second book project or a program for publications for the future. And sometimes I wonder, I mean, I'm telling myself, 90% of the postdoc positions in the humanities are only for 1 year, and perhaps you're not taking the right call here. Perhaps it would be wiser to suggest all of these committees short projects that can yield, short publication and immediate publication. And I wonder what your intakes on that, because I'm not sure it's leading me to the right directions, actually.
May I answer? I think that you have to find a balance, and it's easy to say, very hard to imply. I remember when I was interviewed to a Mandel Scholion fellowship at the Hebrew University. One of the committee members asked me, you have really nice project, but it seems to be something for an article. Why do you need 3 years here? On the other side, I can't imagine a case where there is a department that provides a postdoctoral position that says, oh, she proposed something very, very ambitious, and they won't be able to do that only in 1 year, so we won't give them. Things are much more cynic than, there is much more sarcasm in this system. They will give you this position and they know that you won't be able to complete the endeavor within 1 year. But if they like the thing, they will take it and they will take you.
Yeah, I agree that no one expects you to actually finish everything you promised in the application. No, first, no one will check. But even if they do, if you publish, let's say 2 papers, 3 papers during this year, it's a huge success, and no one will actually check if you proposed a book and eventually you published 2 papers. It's fine. I think it's the more important thing is that the project is doable, not doable within a year, doable. Interesting, new, something that you can contribute to it, something that like what makes you good for the project, like why you, why not anyone else, what's your unique skills. So I think these are more important than being able to complete the project. Everyone knows that you keep publishing from one project, even a few years later, it's okay.
And I guess that you shouldn't do this freshman mistake and proposing something that is very, very similar or very close to your doctoral thesis. Yes. Do something else, not something completely different as Monty Python, but something that is like a higher floor in the same building that you already began to build. And also try to think in metaphors, not only on your specific innovation within your field, but something that would communicate with committee members who are not from your disciplines at all. Yes, you can imagine. I'm a psychologist, astronomist, I don't know. And within or with the metaphor, people would be able to envision what you are up to.
Okay, so I think we have time for one more question of Yad, yeah? But Yoni, if you have one, you can add it.
It's not really a question. I just want to reiterate and maybe present something. I think Rochelle will agree with me. Maybe she wants to add something from our experience. I mean, this year we've interviewed 45 candidates for a postdoc position at Azrieli. So I'll tell you some of the things that we see from our end. Firstly, references are super important. They're perhaps more important than your papers. Especially, Idit mentioned it, in some fields, we don't think that people will, in economics, sometimes, there's like one paper and you get tenure. And depending on the field, the references can tell you if you get good references, and they can't just be letters. Oh, I know Giddon, he's a really nice fellow. It has to be really deep, analyzing what they have done and so far. So you have to find the right person to write who's willing to spend. I know Giddon is writing recommendations. Sometimes they take you a day or two to write. If you're doing it right, it has to be 2-3 pages. It has to be convincing, because you know they read it like they read the Talmud. Say, why did they say A? Does he mean that he's not B? It's ridiculous. These committees, it's hair splitting. You have to make sure. Obviously, you don't have a lot of influence, but you have to know whether this person writes good letters, and is he willing to put in the day or two. So that's one thing. Secondly,
can I just add to that point? Sorry to interrupt, but so we don't lose this track. The people know that the people sitting on the committees are experts in reading these letters. Okay, so the analysis that goes into understanding these letters is coming from real experts. So you have to find the right synthesis.
Like, and sometimes you get 3 letters, and one letter was, it just kills it. Like he writes one sentence that is a bit off, and like it kills the candidacy. Second thing is papers, publications.
Can I add just a point? Because a student asked me to give him a recommendation, and I actually didn't really appreciate that student. I didn't know what to do, and I consulted other scholars.
I'm sorry, I can't write. That's my wife's advice. She writes, when she does it, she spends a few days even writing them. But you can kill his candidacy. He may get better letters from other people. It's better not to write than to write like a parved letter.
Yeah, so many people but told me that they never refuse to write a letter, and then they write like something good but not excellent. And I think that committee members know.
Exactly, it's completely transparent. Committee members are experts. If they're good committee,
so we just have 30 seconds.
Yeah, we have 45 seconds. So Aviad had another important point. I feel we need another hour.
Points. I'm really reiterating things that have been said here. Project, you want to have a good project. If it's a fellowship which really looks at the project, has to be, what we call, has to be. If you have something sexy, that's great. If it has something interesting, it's great. It gives you bonus points. Second, the most important thing, if you were going to a fellowship which when they interview, so you should be prepared for questions and answer. Think of questions and answer. Do simulations with people a lot. Okay, you can never do enough of these. Giddon mentioned something about broadness. Broadness is very important because you're sitting with people who are not from your field. And I'm telling you that from sitting from so many interviews, some people, even within a certain discipline, if they're so narrow-minded and they can't explain their science to other people, it's useless.
Aviad, we have 5 seconds. So I just want to say thank you to everybody for sharing. I'm sorry we don't.
Thank you, Idit.